Welcome to the Happier and Healthier podcast. I'm your host, Maria Marlowe, and this is a place where we don't rely on good luck or good genes for our health and happiness, but rather we create it with our thoughts and our actions each and every single day. Each week, I'll bring you a thought or a guest that will help you live your happiest and healthiest life. Are you ready? Welcome back to the Happier and Healthier podcast. Today's guest is Anela Lineham, who is a co-founder of Human Garage with her husband, Gary. And if you live in LA, you need to run, not walk, to the Human Garage. This place is amazing. And I'm going to share a little bit more about my experience and what it is. But first, let me introduce you to Anela. She is an intuitive women's health expert and an expert in motion and breath work. She has a focus on the biochemical, physical, emotional, and spiritual aspects of a woman's well-being. So she takes a very holistic approach, and that is why I'm so happy to have her on the show today. If you've set a goal for yourself to slim down or improve your health, and you need some help getting there, join me for Eat Slim, my 10-week online nutrition and cooking course. It's been repeatedly called life-changing by past participants as you finish the course having a better understanding and appreciation for your body. You'll learn how to tailor your diet to your unique body so that you wake up feeling energized, light, and vibrant. You'll conquer digestive issues, shed weight, get rid of sugar and junk food cravings, and learn how to cook and order healthy foods no matter what the situation. If you've been struggling to find a diet that helps you feel amazing every single day, sign up for Eat Slim at mariamarlowe.com/eat-slim. Past students have told me they got more out of this than working one-on-one with a nutritionist, and that I should be charging double and triple what I am for this course. But I really want to keep this accessible because I want as many people as possible to be able to do this program, so I've kept it at less than $30 a week. So if you're ready to get healthy for good, head to mariamarlowe.com/eat-slim to sign up. Anela, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Maria. It's a great pleasure to be on your podcast, and I'm so grateful for you and for your podcast, and also awareness that you're bringing to young women and everyone who is called to listen to your messages. So I'm so happy, and we live in a really amazing times, interesting times when we're awakening and asking questions, and I think this is something that keeps us all excited and so grateful. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you. That was a nice little response. So let's start with what the Human Garage is and how it came to be.
Yes. Well, there's a lot of, let's say, synchronicities that played a role in even, coming to exist as an organization or place where we use many modalities for healing. But it started first with myself. I think many, many years ago when I was a little child, I was a gymnast and a dancer. And I remember just constantly dreaming about, how I'm going to I'm going to help the world through movement, and the world is going to be healed through just movement and exercise and breath and dance. But I was maybe 6 years old when I used to have, wake up in the middle of the night and just drive myself insane. But always there was this little voice saying, wait a minute, who do you think you are? That you're going to change the world through movement and bringing awareness. Because I also lived in a small town in a faraway country, Bosnia. And that was almost like, dreaming about coming to America was almost a fairy tale. But I just also want to mention that the power of manifestation and connection and early awakening, spiritual awakening kind of helped me to realize these things. And also, fast forward many decades when I arrived to LA, it was just that calling when I received that it has to happen, that I need to move from New York to LA, and that I'm going to meet my future husband and that we're going to start this business together. Because I didn't even realize how through all my life I started getting broken more and more and more. Even though I was working out, I was doing yoga daily, I was spiritually aware and conscious, but something wasn't working. So when I turned 40, that's when everything starts to break inside of my body. And it came to the point when I couldn't really figure out what's going on. I relied on my strength. I relied on movement. And then one day I woke up, my vision was foggy. My body was aching. I just wasn't as strong as I used to be. And I realized that was my second wake up call, I guess, when I said, hold on, what's going on? And I started praying and I said to myself, I need somebody. I need to bring healer into my life, somebody who's going to help me put me back together again. And that's actually when another synchronicity happened, that I manifested Gary to come into my life. And I remember first time when I met him, he was working for a different organization and with a different healing modality. And I remember first time when he put me on the table, I had a feeling that was the first time that I really, truly relaxed and that I really was able to let go and be open to receive. At that moment, all kinds of things started coming up and happening. And one thing led to another, that synchronicity in the universe kept bringing us together. You know, when you keep running into a person in a weird places and you're like, oh my gosh, look what coincidence that I ran into you here. And everything was pointing that we needed to be together. Everything was pointing that we have a mission together, as a matter of fact. So in a desire to heal ourselves, Human Garage was born. And we don't have biological children between us, but we do have a human garage. It came out as a desire. I mean, it was a seed that was waiting to be born, you know, maybe like 30 years ago. And it was just waiting for the right moment to blossom. And then, you know, here we are in LA and doing what we love to do.
Well, I'm so glad that you birthed the human garage. And I'm sure it was even harder than a real baby.
Yes.
But so let's talk a little bit. What exactly goes on at the human garage? I know when you explain it on the website, you explain it as a holistic approach to body work that releases unhealthy pressure from your fascia, realigns your entire body, and facilitates pain-free movement and peak performance. So you can move like you were designed to move. So let's
Yes.
unpack that a little bit. First of all, maybe we start with the fascia. What is fascia? And let's go back to the movement. Why is movement and having this full range of movement so important for our health and happiness, our life?
Well, you know, I believe that this physical body that we live, you know, right now is meant to move. And it's a beautiful masterpiece and a beautiful creation that needs elements to be functional in this universe. Movement is number one. Movement is life. And if we don't have a movement, decay will be triggered and it's happening. Depression sets in and all the negative emotions. So when we move this life force that's within us. And fascia is the network. It's the network of all these nerves. The communication in the fascia happens so rapidly that I'm not even sure if we can measure it, if we have a way to measure the speed of connection. I mean, it's going to be I think in the next couple of decades and probably years that we're going to be spending more time learning about fascia. Just in the last 4 years, we hear more and more people using the word fascia. 10 years ago, no one really talked about it. It wasn't even mentioned. We know about, you know, the nerve endings, meridians, chakras, but right now, fascia is really a crucial part because fascia is created it's a crystal. So with fascia, the importance is also hydration. It's movement, proper alignment. So if the alignment is not in a balance, then there's a disruption of the electrical signals, biomechanical connections. So there are all kinds of different things are happening in the body. And then the product is, you know, maybe aches and pains in the body if it's not addressed, if we don't know what's happening. So it's really important to understand too that the trauma gets stuck in the fascia. So when we experience fears and phobias and physical trauma, emotional trauma, where do you think they go? They would still, if it's not released and it's consciously released, they would stay logged in the fascia. And from time to time, when we have clients on the table, we would work on certain parts of the body, and then they would just start to cry or remember certain memories because that was related to that trauma that just got locked in the fascia. And that trauma creates blockage in truly like expressing life force that needs to move through the body. Movement is life, and every time there's a blockage, there's a disease. So that's really kind of like the way we're looking at the body, and bringing awareness to people to start really being present and start asking questions. And people that come to Garage, you have to have a specific calling, and you have to be ready to start the process and journey, because, digging deep into your fascia, you may have some uncomfortable emotions and feelings, and things may come up that needs to be addressed. And a lot of people, they're just not ready. It could be that it's too scary, it's too much to deal at the time, but eventually we have to deal with it. If it's this lifetime or next lifetime or 10 lifetimes ahead of us, but eventually everything has to be dealt with and addressed.
Right. And I think, I'm someone who has been guilty of this in the past, is that my way of fixing things was to change my diet or to exercise. And that was really the extent of it, like very early on. And the more I learned, the more I realized that a healthy diet and exercise are really not enough. Exactly. And that's why I think the Human Garage is so effective, because it is dealing with emotions and trauma, but it's doing it in a very different way. Because if you tell most people, okay, how are you going to deal with your emotions? Maybe you'll talk about it or go see someone, right? But you're not necessarily thinking, okay, let's push on this pressure point in your thigh or the roof of your mouth to deal with it. So going back to the fascia. So fascia is this band of like connective tissue underneath your skin. And this is a place that I think most people, I know that I hadn't really heard of fascia until really earlier this year. Although I will say now that I learned about it a bit from you, I'm seeing it here and there popping up a little bit, but still I don't feel like there's widespread knowledge on it. But so anyway, fascia holds emotions and trauma. And so one thing that I was really amazed at when I was there was that I started crying during the treatment. When
exactly.
I was like, what is going on here? And so, so I'll just we'll talk about all the different things, but one thing Gary did was he stuck a glove on and he stuck his finger in the roof of my mouth and pressed really hard for 2 minutes. And it was very painful. I have a very high pain threshold. It was very painful. And I started crying. And this was like such a great emotional release. So what was going on there?
Those deep places, trauma likes deep places, deep, dark places to lodge itself in. So just think about, emotions as entities. They do want to live. Everything that is conscious of life wants to live. Even emotions and viruses and bacteria. And, everything has a life force to some degree. Emotions, and I'm not sure actually if I've heard that people talk, and I'm just receiving like messages as I'm sharing with you, emotions are entities that want to live. So the deep emotion is going to hide in the darkest, deepest place in this body. Kind of like thinking about deep inside of your mouth. I know every single person that experienced the same. I personally can speak about my experience when that was done to me. I remember myself being a little girl and almost being stuck in a place that I couldn't get out, and just almost feeling kind of like not being able to defend myself. Like there's there's many different emotions coming from that place deep inside. And tears, you cannot control those tears, right? They just keep coming by themselves and they want to express it. And it's a relief, and it's this feeling of nostalgia or, grief comes in just because we're letting go something that has been within us for so long. So it's a really interesting, like we can just talk about, those emotions and ability to like cause joy, happiness, or create pain and suffering in our lives. So it's a really important that I always say that we're aware and conscious that once we get on this journey, we're going to start opening many, many doors of the past. And sometimes, Maria, I also believe that, we bring in past life traumas and genetic traumas that has been through generations, and it's going to be expressed through us in some degree. So as we're simple, we're also complicated when we kind of like start digging and taking layers off and trying to understand our existence and how we function in this world.
Yeah, it's really, really, really wild how the body works and how everything is connected. I think very often, especially the Western way of looking at the world, is to compartmentalize everything. And, your hand is separate from your arm, is separate from your torso, right? But it's actually like they're all connected. And once something happens somewhere, your body is going to have to.
It's a chain reaction.
Exactly. So, in terms of posture, I know you guys also work a lot on posture, and that was something that I saw an immediate difference, the before and afters, which I'm going to share the photos on my Instagram, and I'll share them on my website as well. With my posture that I saw just before the session and literally right after the session, it completely changed. So why is posture so important? And how are we, or why are we getting into this habit of having bad posture?
Oh, such a wonderful question. So many things are part of, like why our posture is changing and what's happening. I would say many, many causes for that. First of all, we don't move, we don't walk as much as we're designed to. Most of us, would get up, especially here in LA, wake up, get in your car, drive to work, sit. Maybe you go to the gym for an hour or so, but that's it. That's not really what we're designed to do. The second thing is like sitting causes a lot of, like shutting down of diaphragm breathing. Deep breath is not received in that sense. So there's all kinds of little functions that start to shut down. Another thing too is chemical intrusion. Heavy chemical intrusion. Right now, to be conscious of just what's going inside of our body or on our body is huge. So those are just a couple of things that we can say, what, this is what really is causing all these issues. What we deal a lot with people is autoimmune disease. So when you're in pain, what do we tend to do? We tend to kind of like bring our shoulders down, hunch more, get into keep getting close, in the closed position. So being open is when we're fully in our body, when we're fully aware, when we are full of joy and happiness, and hydration is proper, cellular levels are great, everything is working and optimal. But right now we live in a really EMF is another one that influence alignment. So there's many, many different levels that are just constantly bombarding our electromagnetic field. Yeah, that's kind of what I see as, influence on alignment.
Yeah. And you bring up an interesting point when you're talking about the shoulders, like hunching over a little bit. And when we see someone whose shoulders are hunched over, that's a signal to us that maybe they're not as confident or a little shy or a little bit closed off.
Yes.
And it's so interesting. I've spoken about this before. Tony Robbins is this proponent of our physiology changes our psychology.
Yeah.
So if we're in that position, it's not only telling society we feel a certain way, but it's actually telling ourselves to feel this way, right? And
Absolutely.
It's that same idea with, I think it's Ann Cuddy and her TED Talk, where when we do the power pose, when we put our shoulders back and put our arms either up in the air in a V or on our hips like Wonder Woman, it actually makes us feel more confident, even though we didn't change anything but our posture and our position.
Yes. Yeah, so I'm so excited because this is really my passion in life, is kind of educate people and bringing more and more awareness to it. I would say simplicity is divinity, and it doesn't have to be complicated. The mind is what makes things complicated. But if we would just be aware of posture, from time to time we would have to adjust ourselves, when we're sitting down, but we have to be present and aware. How do we adjust your shoulders, opening? Some people naturally, because of a lot, hard life, hard work, trauma, pain, suffering, they can just kind of tend to kind of go within and start closing the shoulders, which also to me, it would be, closed heart or afraid to open your heart. That's another thing. But what I love, and I observe people when they walk, when you see someone who is confident, they exude that confidence. When they walk into a place, they have a smile on their face. And in my yoga classes, I always say, if you can't do anything else, just put a smile on your face, even if you don't feel like it. Just putting a smile on your face, you're sending signal to your body that I am okay. I am, like signaling those cells, and communication is happening on a fascia level. Everything has become more vital and excited and joyful and happy. So that's, even if we're in a slight pain or discomfort, one thing we can do that is really simple is put a smile on our face. And that's one thing that I keep practicing is first thing in the morning, the first meditation is smile. Even if it doesn't feel like at the moment, I would just smile. And I would go to the mirror and look at myself and smile. And funny enough, when you smile, you right away pull your shoulders back. Right away, the body starts aligning. You can feel a little cracking and things like that. That's what you can do practically for yourself. But if you're really looking into digging deeper into why is this happening to me? And that's the freedom in asking questions. And the freedom comes when we start facing ourselves. The hardest thing to do in this life is really face yourself. It's not facing your parents or your teachers or your boyfriend and husbands or your partners, but it's truly facing yourself. So once we're comfortable to start saying, hey, I am okay to get to know you a little bit better, doors will start opening up, and you're going to find practitioners and modalities. There's no one modality that helps all. And that's why at Human Garage, we utilize many different modalities that when someone comes in, maybe first thing they need to do is work on emotional to open them up so that they can release physically faster and better. So there are many, many levels to actually what we do with Human Garage.
Yeah. So just in my own experience there, we did work a lot on posture, and it was so interesting to me because something that I've been working on for a while is that I found whenever I would stand, I would kind of tilt my pelvis forward and lean back a little bit, right? Because whenever I'm doing public speaking, that was
Right.
what I would see. And I would just do it unconsciously. I had no idea. For me, that was my set point. That was just how I stood. And at Human Garage, I was walking and Gary was adjusting, and then I'd walk again and then he'd adjust again and keep doing it. And now afterwards, I'm literally standing up straight, which is amazing. And now my set point is actually standing up straight, and I don't have that propensity to lean forward, which I had before. And he was just talking also about how, and this makes such sense, when your body is not aligned, your organs inside are not aligned, and they might not be functioning properly. So anyone, for example, with digestive issues, think about your posture. Is the way that you're sitting or the way that you're standing even affecting that in your other organs? So it's just really fascinating. A quick break from this episode to share with you an amazing opportunity. Are you interested in turning your passion for health and wellness into a career that helps hundreds, thousands, or even millions of people live healthier? If so, consider becoming a holistic health coach through the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, the original and top health coach certification program. I studied there in 2012, and it completely changed my career path and life. I went from an uninspiring job in finance to an exciting, fulfilling, and rewarding career as a full-time health coach. The program is offered as a 1-year or accelerated 6-month course, and it teaches you a mix of nutrition, coaching, and business. They have some of the top teachers, including Dr. Walter Willett, who was the chair of Harvard's nutrition department for 26 years, Dr. Marion Nestle, a professor at NYU and author of one of my favorite books, Food Politics, Dr. Mark Hyman, who is the medical director at the Cleveland Clinic's Center for Functional Medicine, Dr. Andrew Weil, Deepak Chopra, Gabby Bernstein, and so many more. Millions of people are suffering from diet-related illnesses, and I truly believe the world needs more health coaches. That's why I've teamed up with IIN to offer an incredible opportunity to make studying there even easier. You'll get $1,500 off tuition, plus one-on-one mentoring with me, plus you'll be added to my private Facebook mentorship group, where you can connect with other students and grads and also practice with them. To get your 3 bonuses, simply email me at maria@mariamarlowe.com. That's MariaMarlowe.com with the subject IIN, and I'll personally send you back the email that will allow you to get all of these amazing bonuses. If you feel called to explore or start a career in health and wellness, definitely reach out. So let's talk about some of the modalities you mentioned. What are some of the modalities that you use at Human Garage?
Well, what we're using is the physical alignment. We're going deep into like a almost point pressure and releasing the body. And we have done that for probably a couple of years now. And what we have realized too is that we want to address large mass of people group because it's necessary right now. The times are coming that it's going to be so many people more aware and needing help. So what we're planning to do really is to go more into educational part and sharing all the different modalities that we have used and that are helpful in combination, which could be acupuncture, acupressure, specific breath work that I do, different workout routines with different alignments. So spiritual work for me, that's where I come in actually. That's where I understand the spiritual aspect of it. So every practitioner at Human Garage is really, finds their own passion. Gary is very into physical. He has ability to see the unseen and kind of like, as you experienced, Maria, he knows where to go in your body to release that tension and bring it up and kind of guide you through the process. The next level truly is also working on the nervous system. So what we have learned is that right now, people are dealing a lot with the nervous system disorders. That's something that when you go to the doctors, they can truly help you. I mean, they can put you on medications, but that really is not a long term. So right now, I am practicing modality that's called 0 point, which means that no matter where you are in life, when you come to that conclusion and decision that enough is enough and I need to make some changes in my life and I don't need to be a victim of life and circumstances and pain and suffering and repeating, trauma, obviously I need to look into myself. So I recommend to start with a 0 point therapy, which kind of like moves you into almost the state of zero, state of nothing. From that state, you can invite and create your new life. Because when we talk about healing, it's really hard, Maria, to go from, there's so many different modalities. Like we have to go back to the 0 point. Because from 0 point, it's almost like, okay, this is my 0 point. From this point, I'm going to start brand new without judgment, without heavy baggage that I have carried through my life. This is my choice. This is my decision. From today on, I'm going to move into my new life. But we have to come to that 0 point. So that's a new therapy that I start practicing, and it's really like mind-blowing in combination with physical work that we do. So just being physical, it may take you short distance. And if we don't address other issues with nutrition and diet and spiritual practice and really taking responsibility, I don't think it's that effective.
Mm-hmm.
It's very complex. So we have to create the community and support system. And that's what we really like. We're looking, we're constantly looking in improving here at the Human Garage.
Right. Yeah, the physical can only take you so far. And I think the mental part and the mindset is really one of the most important components because that's going to dictate if you keep up with the physical and so much more. So
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about the mindset shifts that you find? What do you see in terms of, I'm sure you have tons of young women coming to you.
Yes.
Where are they and where do they need to go in terms of mindset?
Oh, I love this question. This is something that I'm extremely passionate about because in past 2 years, what we have seen young women as young as 26, they're coming with autoimmune disease, full-blown autoimmune disease. And it's pretty intense because you see, even when you go to the Western medicine doctors, they cannot help you. We have seen examples and examples and examples of young women coming in and they're seeking for help and it's so painful to watch what's been happening, because once you go to the doctor, they give you medications that will give you side effects. If you come with one issue, you end up leaving with 10 other issues, and it becomes a vicious cycle. So again, I'm calling because I said you have to go to the 0 point. Finally, we have to surrender. And also we have to create a safe place for people to start healing, and especially young women. So we see more young women now than men suffering from autoimmune disease. There are many reasons. I would say, first of all, is heavy chemical intrusion on the body. For women, just think about, how much beauty products we're using, like silicone implants, injectables, putting stuff on the nails, hygiene products that just directly inserting into the bloodstream when we have our periods. It's a really massive and complex situation what's happening right now, and I believe that we need to start addressing that as soon as possible, like collectively. It's a big issue, and I don't know, some people are talking about it, but we need to talk about it so much more. It's a war. Actually, it is happening, and it's not epidemic, it's a pandemic. That's how big this issue is. And that's one of the things that I'm really passionate about, guiding and helping women. Yes, there's a physical aspect to it. There's a specific diets, bringing awareness, but also addressing mental space. So what happened is, there's so much of us that is human, but then also the bigger part, what's living in this physical body, viruses, bacteria, yeast, so we're living in this organism, which we call human body. And sometimes it's difficult to say, this is me and this is my virus talking.
Mm-hmm.
So many times, when someone has a full-blown, let's say, Epstein-Barr virus is controlling the mind. So I know a lot of people that they have changed personalities during the episode of increased virus load. So even some friends you just don't know, for example, that virus likes to feed on fear. And it creates, and so what it's going to do is it's going to create situation that you're going to be fearful or you're going to be angry. The virus itself likes these negative emotions. So this is where I would say importance of really connecting to the nature, being present as much as possible. I think through breath exercise is really like what brings us into presence. The second thing is hydration is super important. What we need to exist in this human body is breath, hydration, and food. Those three things we need just to exist in the physical body. And then on top of that, how do we deal with these emotions? What I personally realized is I had in the past year deal with tremendous amount of fear. That's something that I came into this world, and that's something that I couldn't and didn't want to address for many, many years. But finally, last year, my dad passed away, and one of my biggest fears was losing someone that I love. And that triggered and opened the door for my self-healing. Actually, just going into that deep fear and digging and working and becoming friends with it. And let me tell you, it was the most liberating experience that I ever had. And so on the other side, when you kind of work with that and you face it, other emotions will come up. Guilt. I didn't even realize I had guilt. I didn't even realize that I had shame. I didn't realize that because fear was the most dominant emotions that was living in my body. So yeah, those emotions are super, super important, and being able to address them, I think it's the key to healing.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, just hearing your story and hearing you speak about these things, like, I think sometimes we forget that everyone goes through down periods. Everyone goes through fear. Everyone has these negative emotions, because what we see on Instagram is everyone smiling and everyone having a great time. And so in the moment when you're experiencing these episodes of fear or these negative emotions, what are some of the techniques you turn to? Is it smiling?
Yes.
Is it the breath work? What are some of the things like in the moment that help you get out of that?
Perfect question. what I like to do with my clients is simplify it and making it super practical because, I say we don't have much time these days. Everybody's busy. Everybody's constantly running and constantly, I find myself always on the go. And so how do you find time for yourself and self-love? Like I said, the morning is probably the best practice. When you wake up, first of all, is just like acknowledge that you're in your body. And then a smile to me is unspoken gratitude. And with that, right away, you're changing your frequency, you're changing your biochemistry. And then what I would suggest is probably just to get some simple breath work. I tell people do 3 minutes a day. Don't even worry about it. Just start with the simple things. I would do a breath of fire for 1 minute. And then I would do some kind of stretching. And what also helps me is creating a space in my house where I know there's my yoga mat, there's my bolster. I'm going to just, this is a place where I just go in for 3 minutes and I ask my body. I think it's important also to develop this language and kind of like communication with your body. We live in the body and I ask my body, okay, what do you need today? Oh, I forgot to say too is I would definitely drink 2 glasses of water on empty stomach.
First thing in the morning.
First thing in the morning, yes. And some days, not every day, some days, maybe twice a week, I would do lemon, like a hot water with lemon. Twice a week, I would do that, but I make sure that I hydrate consciously. I get those 2 glasses in, and then I would, go to the bathroom, and that would kind of create just movement through my body. And then what happened is when we sit down to do the breath work, we're moving all those like toxins that are stuck on a cellular level and also in the blood. Particular breath I do is breath of fire, which is a rapid breath. You can do cannon breath, which is through the mouth, and you can also do just a regular one when you close your mouth through your nose. And what it does also, you're pumping your navel, which means it stimulates all the nerve endings in your belly, lymph nodes that are located underneath the diaphragm. So you're connecting to your reproductive, your sex organs, activating all this chakra, and you're activating prana and the life force, which just 3 minutes of your day, you can also put in like some kind of stretch. Some days you can practice one stretch for maybe a week and then see how that goes. So I'm playing with my mind. My mind is super active, so I had to keep myself always challenged. So if, I like to practice different stretches throughout the day, but that kind of satisfies me first thing in the morning, even if it's like all together from waking up to drinking water, going to the restroom, practicing breath, that all can be like less than 10 minutes to six minutes. And you're kind of ready and set to go. And also what I like to do is to do conscious walks. Maybe like after work, just to go for 30-minute walk around the block. If you live by the beach, connecting to the nature is must. I don't know and I don't understand how anyone can exist in this world and society without connecting to the nature.
I agree.
It's really, really necessary.
Yeah. Like in New York, I tell people like I wouldn't be able to live in New York if it wasn't for Central Park.
Yes.
And everyone makes fun of me for like living uptown. And I'm like, everyone's like, oh, you got to live below 14th Street. I'm like, no way, Jose. No. I need to live in close proximity so I can go to the park daily. Sometimes I'll take work calls and things just walking through the park because it just calms me down in a way that nothing else really can.
Oh, yes. Maria, I would love to invite people, and I am so happy and I'm ready to work with anyone who is interested to get deeper into practice because there's so many different levels. And I totally understand living in the big cities. I live in New York for 21 years and I worked on Upper East Side, 92nd and Madison, and Central Park was my rescue. So there's so much more electricity that's created when you live in a big city. First of all, like you just feel like you're constantly buzzing. It's that buzzing energy, especially in New York from, people now 5G is getting installed. There's so much stuff going on that I remember that when I lived in New York, I was feeling this tremendous amount of electrical energy charge in my body. And I didn't know what to do because I was kind of freaking out. I was like, okay, maybe something is seriously wrong with me. So just one example that I the energy was so strong that I decided, so maybe I'm going to run to emergency room. But as I'm putting my sneakers on, I just hear this voice inside of me saying, they can't help you. They don't know what to do with you. And then the same voice was telling me, put on those sneakers, run to the park. I live in Astoria, run to Astoria Park. And it was kind of raining, but I had no choice. I just went for it 30 minutes. And what I did is I just took my shoes off and I went down into downward facing dog, and I felt that this electrical discharge was going through my body into the earth. And for maybe like a couple of minutes, when it was done, I knew it was done, and I just sit there peacefully. And I was like, oh my gosh, what just happened? But I did that intuitively because I didn't have any other way to like figure out what was happening to me. So the body has intelligence built in us as long as we're able to hear it and listen. And that's why I'm inviting all the listeners to really kind of like open themselves up and either seek for practitioners and ask the body to like really communicate with them, because there's so much beauty inside of these bodies that I don't think we have tapped into it. Like maybe it's only 1% that what we are using right now.
For sure. And I think another issue is that for many of us, it's hard to listen to our intuition because we don't know if it's our intuition or it's our little, that little devil on the shoulder telling us, yeah, like let's eat pizza and Snickers and, sit on the couch and do nothing. I deserve it kind of thing. So
Yes.
sometimes I think it's hard for us. We're so bombarded with all of these other messages from outside, and we're so not in touch with our body
Oh.
that it becomes hard to really discern what our intuition is.
Oh, yes. I'm getting chills right now as you're saying that, because so the little devils and little voices that are like kind of not for our highest good, those are really those viruses, bacterias, yeast, everything that I mentioned earlier, these entities that want to live. And then, heavy metals, toxicity, that all wants to live, and it's been initiated more with EMF now, influences of EMF. So this is why I always tell clients and friends and people that I work with, and my message is truly like, go super clean. Make sure that you limit, if you can't do anything else, start getting rid of all the toxins out of your life from your beauty products. Start eliminating. It doesn't happen overnight. Those voices you're gonna hear less and less of those devilish voices, but more and more of those positive ones that are gonna guide you, because it's a constant battle and constant war within us, because there's a human, and this is like a divine force within each one of us. And also there's this something that's heavy and bringing us down. So when we eat pizza and drink, soda and get so much sugar in this body, of course, the emotion's going to be like, sit on the couch, do nothing, feed me, feed me, feed me. But that's why here comes, the practices and importance of going in the nature, and why we have to go back to that 0 point. We have to break the cycle. We have to call it that I am the boss here, and I am, behind the steering wheel. Now I'm taking charge. So it's super important. A lot of times it's not easy, but as long as I have a voice and say, help me, help me, someone will come to your rescue. Trust me on this. And I've experienced it myself. It could be a friend, it could be a stranger, it could be a book, it could be a podcast, it could be anything. But as long as even we're conscious enough just to say, I need help. So don't be afraid to ask for help. And at the same time, you're going to start building community and support system, which is super important, Maria. Community is necessary.
Yeah, I love that. And I love the idea of just asking for help. And even if it's just in your head, just asking for help,
Yes.
you'd be amazed at what happens. So I have to share this story because it's so crazy. So yesterday I was heading downtown on the subway. And I was like in a little bit of a funk and like a little bit of a bad mood, right? My probably like Epstein-Barr virus and mold and all this stuff was like, triggering things. And I'm sitting on the train, and it's only like a, 10-minute ride. And I'm on Instagram, and all of a sudden someone's trying to airdrop me a photo. And, this happens like very, once in a while, right? But it was a meme. It was like some meme with some like Buddha Yoda thing. And it's like, my body sometimes feels sore, but it works. I don't sleep well some nights, but I do wake up. My wallet is not full, but my stomach is. I don't have all I want, but I have all I will ever need. Life is not perfect, but it's mine.
Oh,
So I know it's so crazy. So I'm like,
beautiful.
I know. I was like, okay, this is so weird. I didn't accept it though, because I'm like, all right, this is weird. So I just I took a photo of it, but I declined it. And then he sent me another one, same guy. And it's like, you can't pour from an empty cup. Take care of yourself first.
Oh, it gives me chills.
I know I started looking around and I mean, I don't know. I didn't see anyone I don't know. It was just the weirdest thing, but I was like, wow, that's pretty cool if this guy's just going around the subway, airdropping people these positive words of encouragement. But
Oh, I believe angels, I believe there are many, many angels in a human form. And sometimes the ones that we least expect, and they're the quiet ones that you don't expect, they're not going to be loud, but they're going to drop message like that that's going to make total sense and change your whole day. And it's almost, when we are kind of lost in a space and time, it brings you back to that 0 point. And you're like,
yeah.
oh, wait a minute. Yes. Thank you.
Right. You're like, thanks for bringing me back to reality. So, one last question I'd love to ask. I feel like I could talk to you forever,
Oh,
actually.
so
But
beautiful.
one last question. If you can share or leave our listeners with just one tip or piece of advice to live a happier and healthier life,
Yes.
what would that be?
Work on judgment. Start realizing and recognizing where you're being judgmental. The first thing is, I just quickly want to share a story with you, because when my dad passed away last year, it was sudden and it was shocking. I had to fly to Bosnia and face, all the trauma that I left behind. So in my meditation, actually, he came to me and shared, he airdropped it. He came to me and he said to me, he says, you know what? Only message I have for you for this lifetime is remove judgment. Remove judgment from yourself and remove judgment from everyone else. I have to admit, in the past, yes, I was judgmental. Everything. First of all, I was judgmental about myself. When you look at yourself in a mirror, oh, this should be this way, the hair should be that way, blah, blah, blah. Constantly judging. And then you go outside, oh, look at this person, look at this driver, how it, so it's a constant judgment. And what for the past year, I start practicing not being judgmental. And Maria, some magical things happen. It didn't happen overnight. Things, you're still human. You're still going to be triggered. But more I practice that muscle of not being judgmental, more beauty I start seeing in the life. And there was a time when I just walked around and everything was so beautiful. And I just was like a tourist coming into this life, walking around with my phone and taking pictures of flowers, taking picture of the sun, and taking picture of everything that was beautiful. So then I started bringing more of that beauty, and that beauty started bringing more joy into my life. And that joy also started developing more into faith, and faith into hope. And all of a sudden I start healing my Epstein-Barr. I start healing my own depression. I start healing my own anxiety. I start feeling all those feelings of not good enough. And all of a sudden, I find myself in the most neutral space. So I say to people, I don't need you to be good. I don't need you to be bad. Just be. Just be in this, neutral space. And that's the alignment, and that's the balance. And that's why, Buddha talks about it, and yogic practice. And we're all, everything is about that neutral state. And it seems so hard to achieve. But my path to it is removing and being conscious of the judgments, and also taking full responsibility of everything that happens to me. It wasn't him that did it to me. It wasn't that hurt me. It wasn't them that, said this about me. It was all me. And once I took that responsibility of looking everyone, even in the past that had hurt me, it wasn't them. It was me that had created it. And just last month, I had this amazing realization in one of my meditations that as I'm sitting, I start seeing myself, sitting in this prison. And this prison was the prison that I built by myself. And I saw that I put these prison guards right outside of this prison. I see myself sitting in this pretty prison and sitting and sitting. And then there was a moment in this vision that I realized, wait a minute, I have the key. I had this key in my pocket all along. I walked to the door of the prison cell. I opened the door and I took myself out of this prison. that was the most amazing realizations that I ever had. Ever since that moment, my life had changed so much. And so these are just the simple little things that I share that are helping me to kind of like live through this life and the time as well. Being
Yeah.
non-judgmental.
No, so important being non-judgmental and taking radical responsibility for our life and our actions. Thank you so much. This has been so insightful. I've learned a ton. I'm so inspired by this, and I'm sure the listeners are too. If anyone's interested in learning more about Human Garage, you can head to humangarage.net. And is there anywhere else people should look for you?
Sure. Even Instagram, Anela_HG. And also, I would be more than happy to help anyone with anything, even just to get to that 0 point from where we can create all new life. Please reach out. And Maria, thank you so much. This was so amazing. I'm so grateful and feeling so blessed. Thank you. Thank you.